Welcome back, dear viewers. Enviroserve Kuwait is the first recycling facility of its kind in the country. With the support of the Kuwaiti National Fund, we set out to fix the e-waste problem, as well as support thriving industries in the country. Decrease their waste footprint, of course. We have with us here in the series of Hala Kuwait our second guest for this evening, Waleed Esbaitah, Managing Partner Enviroserve. Hello and welcome, Waleed.
Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. So could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm an entrepreneur by blood, and I looked into the idea of starting something to do with recycling a while back when I heard about the SME fund. And recycling and environmental causes is actually a pillar of the SME fund. So I applied about 4 years ago, and after approving my project, I went around and decided to move to Kuwait. I wasn't living here at the time, and start this company from zero, basically. And fast forward today, 4 years later, we have quite a lot of collections from companies, from households, and slowly hoping to work with the government.
Of course, I applaud you for your great efforts in finding yourself in this environmental, helping the environment and reducing the footprints, the waste footprints. So this is a very huge accomplishment. So what are the current status of the waste disposal and recycling here in Kuwait?
Unfortunately, Kuwait is lagging in the recycling sector. We have very basic waste treatment facilities. Most contracts are given to companies to collect waste from households and dispose of them in landfills. So we don't have any sort of segregation or recycling of any component. All recycling initiatives are usually private companies, and for the time being it's secluded to Amghara, which is an area in Kuwait that deals pretty much with the metals.
Yes.
Even though metals are extremely expensive as opposed to other forms of waste. And sadly there's no other organized way of treating the metals that comes out from any type of waste. There's a plastic recycling facility, but again, this is a private initiative.
Yes.
So Kuwait needs to step up the legislation, the rules and the regulation, as well as enforcing them by segregating waste from households and perhaps refusing to collect municipal waste unless it's been segregated, as well as promote the idea of recycling. Recycling is a beautiful industry that could be very lucrative, create tremendous amounts of jobs, and could be great for the country. So
yes.
instead of the private sector having to work very hard at making it happen, the government sector should be subsidizing these ideas. Sadly, Umnia, the bottle collection company, went bankrupt very recently, and they had to shut down. It's going to be very difficult for another company like that to come around and start again and have a big name and create the infrastructure. So it is definitely something that needs to be enforced by the government.
Of course, I totally agree with you. So do you think that some of the reason why it went bankrupt is because of COVID and the coronavirus and quarantine, of course?
Of course, partially, but the true problem, so this is why I focused on metal recycling, which is electronic recycling. Collecting plastic bottles, you need about 20,000 bottles for 1 ton, and we're talking about 60 or 70 kd per ton. So this has to be seen as a service that the government has to subsidize. The government has to understand what kind of overhead this business has and support it because they're cleaning the country.
Of course.
The way I looked at it really was from a business perspective. I looked at it as a form of making money whilst doing my part in recycling and helping the environment.
Of course, yes. So what made you consider recycling for a career, and why electronic waste? As you just mentioned, because it's to make a profit as well as to help the environment, and it's much easier than plastic bottles.
Sure. So we speak a lot about minimizing our carbon footprint.
Yes.
And that could be done in many ways. So it's no argument now that eventually we're going to phase out using fossil fuels or non-renewables. Just today, actually, in COP26 at Glasgow, they've agreed on a timeline of when there's going to start phasing out using petroleum products to power the world, and electricity, vehicles, and logistics. So in the same way, receiving or collecting commodities as raw material for the creation of products is a very harmful thing to the environment. Plastic made out of petrochemicals is harmful because it doesn't break down.
Yes, of
and
course.
you can reuse it quite a lot of times bringing it back to raw form and creating new products out of it. In the same way, metals are mined from massive pits in the middle of countries that have the raw material commodity. Instead of having to dig through the earth and disrupt environments and cut down trees and kill animals in the area, which does happen, you could find these metals around you. It's known as urban mining.
Yes.
So yes, we focus on e-waste, but realistically, there's metals in everything. There's metals in furniture, cars, everything, absolutely everything.
As well,
in your phone,
yes.
of course. People always focus on the fact that we have some precious metals in technology, but really the bigger picture is that we want to create a circular economy.
Yes.
We want to get the metals out of things that people have disposed. They don't need them anymore. The amount of material we receive from companies like Excite Al Ghanim in Kuwait, we've received 300 tons from them in a year and a half. So this was material destined to the landfill. Nothing was going to happen to it.
Yes.
And from that, quite a lot of metals were collected, sold, which makes sense for us as a business. But then again, those metals aren't going to be mined, they're going to be reused.
Is it this kind of the one of the companies when they tell you bring your old iPhone in order to give you a new iPhone, or Samsung in order to change the device and give you like a small change of amount in order to get the new one? This is the kind of the recycling process of the electronic waste, I think.
Yes, of course. I mean, there's many models, and a lot of companies try to incentivize the consumer. And this is one of the ways they could do that. But really, the formula that you've heard many times is reduce, reuse, and recycle.
Yes.
So as much as you can, try to use less material. You know, don't use plastic bottles, use water bottles.
Yes.
Try to buy electronics that are going to last you much longer. And then reuse. If someone could benefit from your old technology, it's much better than disposing it.
Of course.
And then the final one is recycle, because this does require quite a big investment. And it's not easy to do at times, because in my factory, we take everything from a mobile phone and a fridge, and you don't treat the two the same way.
Of course, yes. So what are some of the challenges you faced? I'm sure you faced a lot of challenges in your daily work.
So in Kuwait, it's been about 3.5 years now that we've been full force working at this project. It started off by working really hard to convince companies to give us their waste. A lot of companies required us to pay for that waste, even though it's waste.
Yes.
There's very little value. And if there is value, the fact that I'm offering to take this material away from you should be a paid service. Actually, in the West, in Europe, this is a paid service. Companies will pay recycling companies to come and take this waste away, no matter what value was inside it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I even noticed in some states in the US or even abroad, they use like a machine in order to cycle the water bottles, but you get money instead of just recycling it. So this is a great way to help motivate people to recycle.
It's a very good way to motivate people, but we have to eventually start to look at giving back.
Yes, of course.
It doesn't have to always be financial.
Yes.
So today, after COVID, actually, we realized companies have really started to look at their responsibility. So if a company imports 1 million bottles of water of a foreign company, for example, and 100,000 bottles are expired, right now in Kuwait, there's no regulation to dictate what happens to this material, and it gets dumped in the landfill. Imagine this example with everything, with every company, all the FMCG goods, all the consumer items in the market, electronics or non-electronics, they end up in the landfill in Kuwait.
Yes.
So more and more we're finding that the mother companies or the representatives around the world, they're insisting that their distributors in Kuwait or in any other country start to become more and more responsible for the end of life cycle. So in the same way you have a marketing budget at the beginning to market a product, you need to have a budget at the end to dispose of it correctly.
Yes, of
so
course.
Thankfully we're moving towards this mentality. We're seeing companies now agreeing to paying us a fee to do this recycling process, and it's becoming much more of a business case now that the people are accepting this model. We're also trying to create a way to collect from homes through a membership program.
Yes.
So this service doesn't exist in Kuwait, unfortunately. And we're thinking, myself and another company that is quite big in the plastic recycling, Bi'atuna it's called. We're looking to start a company with 10 vehicles. So anyone can get a membership for 100 KD.
Yes.
And then we'll collect from you every single week. all recyclables. So paper, cardboard, metals, electronic waste, and plastic, of course. Really, the main thing is to find a logistical way of delivering these goods. It's not impossible to work with the material, but it's important to offer people that want to recycle the option.
Yes,
because there's no other option in the municipality or the public system, basically.
Yes, I've actually seen in a lot of university and even at malls nowadays, they have this segregation of recycling for paper, plastic, and other types of materials. So this is a great step forward here in Kuwait. So as you mentioned about your company, you must have faced a lot of other challenges during COVID and because of the quarantine. So could you tell us more about that?
So because our work is very physical and requires to be collecting and exchanging items from people, whether it's collecting electronic waste or selling the commodities, we had 2 to 3 months of complete lockdown, which I think everyone dealt with. But the difference is, after the lockdown, we realized that people now accept the fact that their waste is going to be around them. So in a way, actually, COVID somewhat helped us in the long run.
Yes, of course. So what are the non-environmental benefits of recycling?
Well, it's a tremendous business. So in the same way people talk about the mining sector to be worth billions, and it is, urban mining or recycling in general is that big of an industry. So there's many examples in the GCC actually of metal-related companies that have become huge. There's an aluminum company in the UAE, there's a steel pelletization plant in Bahrain, and these companies have added a tremendous value to the GDP of the countries. It's not going to take me or 10 other people. It's going to take hundreds of people in an industry like this that is backed by the government and supported, and the regulations to be enforced time and time again. But this could become a very large industry. So we look at the metals that are going in and out of Amghara on a daily basis, and we know it's worth millions of KDs.
Of course,
right
yes.
now it's being it's fragmented, it's mismanaged, and frankly it's a very dirty way of working with waste or with recyclables in general. So this industry could create tremendous jobs. I mean, I myself have 10 employees, and if I had the backing and support a little bit more, I could easily see that become 50 to 100.
Yes.
Because once you understand your industry, you can easily expand it to be something much bigger. So yeah, both the GDP factor, creating an immense source of income that was wasted. It was going to a landfill. The numbers are terrifying. The amount of gold apparently in landfills around the world is about $80 billion, because no one actually benefited from it and was disposed, yes, and it will never be reclaimed again. So imagine the same example with all commodities, and we continually dispose of them. As well as, of course, as I mentioned, job creation. Job creation, I think, is becoming a problem, a societal problem in Kuwait.
Yes, of course.
And supporting an industry like this is going to only benefit the greater population.
Yes, to have more job opportunities, and to encourage even people to get into recycling. This is very important for our environment as well because of the global warming. And as you noticed, heat in Kuwait has gone a lot more than it was in the past few years. So this is very important as well. So
definitely, yeah. People don't realize that the statistics and the science has already proven that, yes, we're on the way to some very bad, a very bad status of living. People don't want to accept it. The same way there were warnings about a pandemic or a potential pandemic that could change life for everyone. This was a warning that was existing for the past 10 years, 20 years. Scientists knew that the day will come. In the same way, the environmental issues are here, and they're very, very serious. I watched something for Bill Gates. He was mentioning that the difference in our lifestyle from the pandemic is nothing compared to the difference in our lifestyle to the environmental dangers.
Yes.
And when we speak about 1.5 degrees of warming, you're right, that's an average. So in this region, it could be 5, 6, 10 degrees Celsius hotter. It's already very hot, and it could be unlivable at some point. Of course, it requires everyone working together. Even if Kuwait was perfect, it's not enough. The world has to work towards it.
Of course, it is very important to spread awareness about these kind of issues. And of course, what would you advise the population, and how can people reach you?
So we have an Instagram. We try to be active on Instagram, and we have a number that people can WhatsApp. We collect from homes directly, usually within a week. But this service we're launching soon, I'm very excited about, because we can create a schedule convenient to you. You come back from work at a certain time on a Thursday, you can expect our vehicle to be there and collect all of your recyclables. And 100 KD we don't think is a lot of money per year. People spend that money on 2 dinners, 3 dinners. So
Yes.
this is your way of giving back. We have to change the mentality. A lot of people think that this should be a charitable contribution, but this is actually a profitable business. I hire people, I rent a place, I buy machinery, I work myself in this industry. So it is a service I'm offering to improve the greater good. Whether or not I benefit from it in a monetary way shouldn't be really a topic of discussion.
Of course, because you're helping the environment, and even you're preparing to give new job opportunities for a lot of people.
Of course.
So you need to pay them, you need to rent the place. So that's a lot of expenses on your hand.
Sure, yes.
Yes.
So we're more than happy to work with companies, with universities and schools and individuals. There's no limit really. We're getting, the word of mouth is going around, and we're getting a lot of work recently from that, whether it's companies, the oil companies, and individuals as well. So we find usually that neighbors talk to each other, and we go pick up from one after the other. But yes, we're open to anyone that would like to recycle metals or other recyclables, because we do the logistical part to it, and we hand it to the correct companies that work with the material.
Yes, of course. And is there anything you would like to share with our dear viewers? Any last word of advice?
Just that it actually begins with you. So the consumer is the person that has to realize that this is their part in the greater good of improving the carbon footprint problem, the global warming problem, the
Yes.
pollution problem. It's easy to say that my effect is very small. But if every single person did something small, it's going to be something large.
Of course.
So we really like to convince people that it does take a lot of people joining hands and doing this in their own households, in the companies that they work in. Teach their kids that this is the normal way of working with waste. It's just that Kuwait, unfortunately, is 50, 60 years too late in terms of changing the infrastructure of the waste disposal. But we're working on it, and hopefully we get the support we need to expand to be much bigger than we are.
Hopefully you do. It's been a pleasure to have you with us on Hala Kuwait.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're most welcome. Dear viewers, we had with us Waleed Esbaitah, Managing Partner in Enviroserve. Let's move on to our next report. It's about art expedition. Let's have a look at it. Stay tuned.